afternoon, folks. I hope you are able to have a wonderful lunch and enjoyed the session just now. I hope you were able to get your boogie on during your lunch break by DJ Hella Yella. If you are here today to learn about substance abuse in the African American community, you are in the right space. So we're going to wait a few minutes to let folks log on, but I want you to do a couple things for me. One, in the chat, if you can drop where you're from, just drop whatever city you're from, how's it going? And then I want you to tell me what you are cooking either for the Super Bowl game or for Valentine's Day. So again, tell me where you're from, and then tell me what food you are cooking for the Super Bowl. I know y'all got some great recipes that you guys are gonna try. You know, this is a great time to try new stuff at the Super Bowl. You have your staples, but you can try some new stuff. But if you're not really into the Super Bowl, tell me what you're cooking on Valentine's Day. So I'm gonna be looking at the chat and just seeing what people are cooking, because you know, at this conference, we really consider ourselves family. So I just may need to see whose house I need to come over just so I can get a little quick bite to eat. I may do some house hopping out there. So tell me again where you're from and what you are cooking either during the Super Bowl or for Valentine's Day. All right. We're gonna wait. We got about 5 more minutes. So again, keep putting that information in the chat. Tell me where you're from and what you're cooking. Oh, somebody said they're making banana bread for Valentine's Day. Oh, that was my mom's favorite. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. What else are y'all making? Oh, steak and shrimp. Okay, we going fancy. I see I need to house hop already. I got steak and shrimp and banana bread. All right. What else? That sounds so good. Again, Valentine's Day or Super Bowl, whichever you prefer. Just tell me what you're making and what's happening, and give a shout out to what city you're from. Ellen asked me, what am I making? I have no clue what I'm making yet. I think I'm gonna try a couple of the new recipes for the Super Bowl because I love to explore new stuff, which always happens when you're watching those wonderful Super Bowl commercials, you know, the ones before the Super Bowl where they show you all the dips and all that stuff. I think I'm gonna try that, some stuffed jalapeno peppers and whatever else comes up, probably something with shrimp in it, like somebody else mentioned. So shrimp is always a favorite. Uh-oh, somebody said they're making fruit pizza. Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. I don't know what that is, but that sounds amazing. Awesome, we got some folks from Austin, El Paso, San Antonio in the house. Keep on coming in the chat. Again, if you are just joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome to this wonderful session. We have about a few minutes before we start, and we just had an open question to just say, hey, one, give a shout out where you're from, and then tell us what you are either making, what food are you making during the Super Bowl? And for those who may not be into the Super Bowl, what are you making for Valentine's Day? So again, give a shout out where you're from, what food you're making for Super Bowl or Valentine's Day. And even if you have a winner, who do you pick for the Super Bowl? I know for me, I was hoping it was gonna be a repeat with Brady in Kansas City. I mean, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, wonderful repeat. These are two teams that I'm like, I don't think I've watched that much at all, but it's exciting because they haven't been in a long time. So tell me what's happening and what you guys are doing, who you're rooting for, what you're cooking. Again, this conference, we say we are family. So I'm gonna act like I'm family. And so if y'all are cooking something good, I may just stop by. I don't know, I may have to fly to El Paso and figure out what's happening there as well. So tell us what's happening and what's going on. So grateful to have you guys here. This has been an awesome experience, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful experience on day 2 of this conference. I know there's been a lot of information, lots of great music, lots of excellent presenters, and this presentation is definitely no different. So we're super excited that you guys are here. I see somebody from Abilene. They said they're not cooking anything. That's all right. You can be like me and house hop. That is okay. Awesome. We got Abilene and Austin in the house. Well, I want to get started, and again, keep those comments in the chat box. But I want to again welcome everyone to the 22nd Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. You have probably heard that 15 times, but we are super excited that you are here. My name is Felicia Mason Edwards, and I am going to be your moderator for today's session. So shortly, we'll enjoy substance use disorders in the African American community, which is a huge topic right now. So we're so grateful we have some wonderful presenters. But again, continue to keep those questions in the comments about one, where you're from, give a shout out where you're from, what are you making for Super Bowl, what are some of those snacks and goodies, and then if not, again, if you're not a big Super Bowl person, that's okay. What are you making for Valentine's Day? And so also, just before the session begins, we always want to do some housekeeping things. And so definitely we want to give a shout out to our sponsor for sponsoring this wonderful event and presentation, the University of Texas at Stephen Hicks School of Social Work, Addiction Research Institute. So I know that's a long word. We call it UT Austin at ARI, which is typically what we say. But thank you so much for helping make this possible. Because again, without sponsorships and without folks from the community like you to attend, this could not be possible. So now I have to go and kind of go through a little housekeeping. And so we understand that we know you've probably heard this several times already, but we want to make sure that we have a safe and supportive environment. So again, please continue to help us make this respectful and inclusive for everybody involved. Please also mute yourself at all times. Again, there will be space during the Q&A where you can unmute yourself and raise your hand for questions. But please, again, for the presentation, mute yourself at all times. Also, make sure that you use the chat function in Whova. If you want to interact with the attendees, please, again, keep those questions and comments flowing and coming. But for questions for the presenter, please make sure that you put that in the Q&A function in Whova. Again, also, we'll have an opportunity for those of you who also may be on Zoom and cannot do that Q&A function. You can raise your virtual hand and then we can unmute you during that Q&A time. We also want to just remind folks that we know a lot of the content that we have during this conference may be triggering to some folks. So if you feel overwhelmed at any point during this session or in other sessions, please, we want to make sure that you take time for yourself. And so if you need some extra emotional support, please call 512-472-4357. Again, and I know we'll put that information in the chat, but it's 512-472-4357. And once the phone rings, please press 1, and then please press 1 again, and then somebody will be there to assist you. Also note that even between sessions, you can visit the Comfort Suite, which is an excellent space to kind of hang out, to gather yourself, to get some support. You'll find the Comfort Suite in the community under the main navigation tab. Again, we understand that some of these conversations can be triggering, whether they bring tears of sadness or tears of joy. And we want to make sure that you feel supported. So we have, again, that phone number for you, or you can also attend the comfort suite. Now, here's the crust of what we want people to remember as well. We have a number of different surveys, but these surveys are very important and very critical to the conference. So one, if you registered for a CEU, check the link in the chat box because you need to sign in. And I know most of you should be familiar with this. We're on day 2, but please, please, please make sure that you sign in so you can get your CEUs. And remember that first link is for the sign in, and then after the workshop is finished or near the end, you will get a second link to just fill out the information. And that link is more of a CEU evaluation. So the first link is sign in, the second link is evaluation. And then there's also a third link. So this is for the overall session evaluation. So please, please, please make sure you take time to evaluate this session. And then you also may win a chance at $25 gift card, y'all. Hey, that could help buy some of the food for the Super Bowl game or your Valentine's Day. So again, please, please, please make sure you do that. Also know that, hey, we have some awesome merchandise, just great conference merchandise that you can purchase. So please check out the online store at CTAAFSC, I'm sorry, let me say it again, CTAAFSC, which is Central Texas African American Family Support Conference.com/shop. So again, go there, click on that, look at the merchandise and purchase something, and you'll be helping to continue the great work of this conference. So now I have gotten all of the housekeeping out of the way. So are we ready? Okay, are we ready? I need the people to say yes, what's up? Hey, Felicia, yes, let's go. Put your comments in the chat box, but are you ready? Because we have some wonderful presenters today. We have Ryan Smith and Libbey Sanford. And I just want to give you some information about the presenters. Ryan Smith was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. She is a recovering substance use disorder, and she is very passionate about her recovery. It is her mission to use her lived experience to help others on their journey. As an African-American woman, she would love to use her experience to help close the gap on mental health issues in the African-American community. So thank you, and let's welcome Ms. Libbey Sanford. Next. Uh-oh, I think I read it wrong. I'm sorry. Ryan Smith was born and raised in Fort Worth. So that's Ryan's story. I apologize. And now Libbey Sanford has been working in the recovery community for 8 years as an LCDCI. And she started her career as the lead youth staff for Teen and Family Services, an alternative peer group where she found her passion for working in adolescents in recovery from substance use disorder. From there, she became a student engagement coordinator at the University High School and worked her way up to program director. Prior to finding her passion as an adolescent drug and adolescent counselor, she was involved in summer programs teaching children with autism and other intellectual disabilities. She was helping to teach them social skills and helping them to integrate into the community. She is currently working towards her master's in social work at UT Austin and plans to earn her LMSW. So now this is Miss Libbey, and then Ryan Smith was the other one I read previously. So again, welcome our presenters. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's enjoy the presentation, and we'll be back later for the Q&A live session.
And Austin Recovery Network, as we discuss substance use disorders in the African American community, we are glad that you decided to join us and to view our workshop. So who are we? My name is Ryan Smith. I'm a student engagement coordinator with University High School, which is a part of Austin Recovery Network, and I am a certified recovery peer coach.
And my name is Libbey Sanford, and I am the program director of University High School, and I'm also an LCDCI.
So when we begin talking about substance use disorder and mental health in the African American community, the question is, where do we begin? So you have to go back to the history of African Americans in this country to understand where we are now. African American history begins when Africans arrived on the shores of North America in the 16th and 17th century, and this is known as the North American slave trade. And African Americans have a unique experience in this country because they came to the shores of America against their will as slaves. So essentially, this means that they were not seen as humans. They weren't given rights, but they were not seen as human. They were seen as property. Around 10 to 12 million African Americans were sold into slavery by European merchants. Around 388,000 landed in America. The history of slavery in America has had generational consequences and ramifications for the African American community. One of those consequences are systemic racism. So African Americans experience systemic racism. As African Americans fought to become free, they faced much opposition such as racial segregation, discrimination, racism, civil rights violation, and much more. African Americans experience disparities in mental health and substance abuse services. So just like much of the civil rights movement, we see African Americans fighting for the right to vote, they fight for the right to own property, and for the right to just simply be seen as humans. And a lot of this carried over into other fields, such as substance abuse and mental health fields. So just a little timeline on African American history. In 1865, the Civil War ended, and African Americans, who were essentially slaves, were granted equal rights with their white neighbors. However, Jim Crow laws were passed in the South to stop the advancement of African Americans. In 1901, which is the early 20th century, due to poor economic conditions, segregation, and lynchings, which was over 6 million rural African Americans migrated out of the South. In 1954, civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. leads a movement to end segregation and discrimination. So in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, which outlawed racial discrimination. But unfortunately, that did not stop racial discrimination from existing in this country. And many African Americans still face disparities that we still see them facing today. In 2020, the US Census recorded 46,936,733 respondents to the US Census identified as African American. So that's 14.2% of the American population. African Americans today continue to face obstacles and barriers such as discrimination, stigmas, and other challenges. Racism is just now being seen in the mental health profession as an experience of trauma. And so just to give a little definition on systemic racism is defined as a form of racism that is embedded in the laws and regulations of a society or organization, such as the criminal justice system, housing, employment, healthcare, and education. African Americans face systemic racism at alarming rates more than any other racial minority in the United States. This limits access to healthcare and quality of treatment. Negative outcomes for people of color can be seen in the substance abuse and mental health field. So for example, studies have shown that physicians are more likely to provide requested pain treatment for white patients when compared with Black patients. And so systemic racism creates lots of barriers for African Americans who may be experiencing substance use disorders or mental health challenges, and they go to seek treatment or they go to seek help in a system that is European or white American focused. Systemic racism and disparities in the healthcare system keep African Americans from seeking and receiving the treatment needed for mental health and substance use disorders. So here are some statistics when we look at substance use disorders in the African American communities. So alcohol use in the African American community. We can see that African American communities face the same challenges when it comes to mental health and substance use that other communities face. And looking at the chart, it shows that alcohol use is declining in the African American community, but it is increasing in ages 26 or older. And also, even though alcohol use is declining in the African American community, opioid use, which is among the opioid crisis in America, is also increasing in the African American community. So this chart shows some more statistics on illicit drug use among African Americans. So like I said from the previous slide, while alcohol use and alcohol dependence is declining, more illicit drug use is increasing. So we see marijuana use is increasing, and also psychotherapeutic drugs, which are prescribed prescription drugs, and cocaine use is increasing. And when it comes to the opioid crisis in America, studies have shown that the African American community is often left out of studies and treatments about opioid use. These statistics focus on African American youth. One statistic says major depressive episodes increased from 9 to 10.3% among African American youth ages 12 to 17. It increased from 6.1% to 9.4% in African American young adults ages 18 to 25. And then African American teenagers are more likely than white teenagers to attempt suicide. So while the death rate for African American teens who attempt suicide is lower than white teens, African American teens are more likely to attempt suicide versus actually carry that attempt out and die from it. Also, binge drinking, smoking cigarettes and marijuana, and illicit drug use, again, the use of prescription pain relievers and misuse are more frequent among African American adults and youth with mental illnesses. Some more statistics is 1 in 3 African American adults who need mental health services do not receive it. Serious mental illnesses, which is known as SMI, rose among African Americans between 2008 to 2018. African American adults are more likely to experience feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness than white adults. African Americans living below the poverty line are twice as likely to report serious psychological distress. So here we have voices from the African American community that share their experiences of mental health and substance use disorder. The first video highlights the voices of African American teens as they talk about their experiences with mental health.
Depression and anxiety, and also just feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like people aren't going to accept me for what I am.
Sadness, stress, depression, anger.
Being anxious, anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration.
Anxiety and embarrassment are the top of the list of very intense emotions that I deal with.
Well, I had anger and heartbreak were the main ones.
being insecure about myself, like the way I look and like my body size.
Like I usually just like keep to myself, kind of. I'm not really like joking around or anything like that.
I feel sick to my stomach and as if nothing can go right.
I feel like just like alone, and I feel like nobody can understand what I'm going through. It just kind of feels like I'm like this twig, that's a walking twig that just goes anywhere and everywhere.
It's just like emptiness, like a gap, like kind of just like is gone away from my body or so.
You just want to scream, and it's like your life is all one big puzzle.
I get shaky and my stomach gets sick and my mind is jumping to the worst case scenarios and it's all over the place, jumping to conclusions.
My mind kind of like clamps together in a way, and I can't like pick out each and every thought that I can because it just swirls around and I can't like grab it and trying to work through it.
My heart is racing. I can't speak really clearly. I'm like kind of sweaty and just kind of not looking too great.
I like just get really paranoid and don't know what to do.
Sometimes it's like I get like this knot in my throat because I know that what I'm feeling, I can't express it or you can't say it.
I want to punch everything around me. Like I want to punch a wall, a bed, and
When I take pictures of myself, I kind of use a black and white filter to tell me that everything will look the same and nothing will change.
Take some deep breaths and listen to music, and talking to someone about it usually helps.
I listen to music, often music that either has to do with the things that I'm feeling or music that will make me feel the opposite of what I'm feeling. And I tell myself that whatever I'm feeling or going through, it's all going to get better and that it will end eventually.
I try to just think positive, have positive thoughts, and say I can get through it. Or I just try to just breathe and just relax.
I usually like write a poem, or like I'll try to figure out some kind of jazz chords to play on my piano to like mellow my mood a little bit. So
I try to remind myself that I'm not the only one who feels this way. I try to cool myself down to make everything go away.
So the next two videos highlight the voices of African American men as they share their experiences with mental health and substance use disorders. Statistics have shown that African American males are particularly worried about stigma when it comes to mental health issues and substance use disorders.
I was always taught to be strong in this world, told to never let my guard down because at any moment I could be attacked without a moment's notice, that my skin made me a target. Skin that has persevered through many trials and tribulations, from seeing my mama raped by landlords, to my father being beaten and stripped of his manhood, to my brothers and sisters being separated into jobs for this bigger system. My skin has always been under attack. Yet somehow we prevailed through it all, through all the lynchings, literacy tests, new Jim Crows, war on drugs, the gentrifications, police brutalities, food deserts, mass incarcerations. We survived and adapted and pushed to change because our very existence depended on it. Our very existence depends on this black strength that has carried us for decades, but is undermining an important aspect of our humanity and feeding in on itself. Being strong all the time took away our ability to speak about our weaknesses, our sadness, our mental illnesses. This silence is killing us. On top of that, we lack proper mental health care access and endure mistreatments by medical professionals who cannot relate to us in their practice. On top of that, we stigmatize mental illness to preserve this place of our strength, damaging ourselves, and among black children observing a spike in suicide rates. Because they may feel that their place in heaven is way better than their place here today, because when Black life isn't valued enough for professional help, adequate housing, or even breathing, life here degrades in value in comparison to life after. Black bodies, strong Black souls are floating through the wind, seamlessly letting go. Strong Black bodies are screaming for help, but suffering in silence and being socially and systematically being put on quiet. Black souls are strong, but we do need help when we do fall through the cracks. That is why I want you to know that you can patch things up with me. All right, we can kick it back like it was a drive-through movie in the 1970s. We could get some help from people who actually understand us, refute our standards of stigmatizing mental illness, and fight against the structures that chronically misdiagnose what this really is. Fight against the racism that brings up our mental health issues and lowers our treatment options, bringing us one step closer to seeing no other option. I want us to see that we have a way to heal this wound that has been widening ever since day one with no means of contracting. I want us to know that the seed that we sow today is the harvest we reap tomorrow. And when we finally reap, we can find peace in these moments, noticing that the danger isn't gone, but we finally have a place where it feels like it is, the grounding of Black bodies.
When you look at me, what do you see? Now, I'm gonna go through some of the things that I typically hear. To the very astute, I usually get I'm Black, I'm bearded, and I'm strong. I also get I look like NBA superstar James Harden. I'm most definitely the poorer version. I get hip-hop superstar, Emmy Award winner, Donald Glover, AKA Childish Gambino. Yeah, that too, right? And last but not least, I get Curtis Jackson, AKA 50 Cent. Now, one of my goals is definitely to get rich or die trying. I think Sally Mae is putting the emphasis on or die trying, right? But see, what I don't hear is, Phil, you look like somebody that lives with depression and anxiety. Phil, you look like somebody that was suicidal for 15 years, every day, 5 to 6 times a day. They don't say, Phil, you look like somebody that was driving on Interstate 95, wanting to crash your car to end your life. No. Because see, here in America, when we think about mental health, we think about the homeless man who's walking the streets, talking nonsensically to himself. We think about the white celebrity who takes their life via suicide. We think about the white mass murderer who goes into a high school and takes the lives of innocent children. Or it's usually your president who loves to tweet venom from the hip. But see, rarely does the conversation speak of a father of 2 kids, someone who possesses a master's in exercise science, a master's in social work, somebody pursuing a doctorate. Rarely is it a person of color. Rarely is it a Black man like myself, until now, because Black mental health matters. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is Black mental health, and why is it differentiated amongst racial and ethnic lines? Black mental health are the individual and collective experiences that influence the wellness of a community. Trauma is the biggest influencer of Black mental health. We're talking about historical trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, the Tuskegee experiment, up until present day trauma, when you see somebody that looks like you get killed in their home. Rest in peace, Botham Jean. When you see somebody who's living with mental wellness issues get killed by the police. Rest in peace, Laquan McDonald of Chicago, Illinois. Or when you see somebody that looks like you get killed by somebody that looks like you. Rest in peace, XXX Tentacion. See, when we talk about trauma, trauma is unique to the individual. and I'm no different. There were 3 impactful, traumatic situations that I've experienced in my life outside of the genetic predisposition because my grandmother lived with schizophrenia. I hearken back to being in 8th grade, 13 years of age. On the way to school, my mother has a nervous breakdown. She's crying. She's pulling at her clothes and her hair. She's cursing. I felt helpless because I couldn't help her I couldn't help myself. And see, I was expected to continue to go into school that day and achieve. It's funny, when I first started telling this story, I told my mother, listen, I'm telling the story of when you had a nervous breakdown. And she said, Phil, that didn't happen. Now, I know I'm getting older. I have a few grays, right? But I swear I remember that. And then she called me a week later and she said, Phil, I didn't know you remembered that. As if I wouldn't remember the most traumatic situation that I've experienced in my life. And that typically happens. We're often expected to just continue on because we are so resilient as a people, because we do survive, and we've survived for hundreds of years. And I was expected to survive and go into school that day and perform. And I did, because like many of us, I learned how to suppress my emotions and my feelings. But what if I didn't? What if I went into school and I started arguing with peers and fighting? What if I started arguing with the teachers? What if I did criminalistic behaviors within the community? Would I be deemed incorrigible and unable to be in the school setting, in the community setting? Or would anybody care that I just experienced this traumatic situation that has impacted me? Fast forward to my 12th grade year, 17 years of age, January 2001. My mother said, Phil, come downstairs. She said, Phil, your brother Bobby died. And I started crying. That was probably the only healthy coping skill that I had at the time, right? Because being a product of the hip-hop culture, hip-hop tells me when somebody dies, you either go out and get some liquor or you go get a rest in peace tattoo. Well, I wasn't old enough to drink. That would happen once I got to college, right? But I went out and I got this rest in peace tattoo. As if that was going to do something, if that was going to take away the pain of losing a primary relationship. It didn't. And people ask me, Phil, well, how did your brother die? Say, the opioid epidemic is popular now. But in the black community, in the hip-hop community, especially amongst black male, it's always existed. He was one who liked to use codeine and Xanax. I don't know what he was trying to cope with. I will never know. I went to school that Monday because I didn't have anybody to say, Phil, stay home, because my mother was going through it because she just lost her only child. And I went to school feeling all of this emotion. And I remember it like yesterday. I was sitting in computer class. Miss Williams, my computer teacher, came up to me, and I don't know what she said. She said, Phil, she could have said, Phil, what was the score of the Eagles game last night? I let her have it. I blacked on her. I cursed her out. Why? Because I had all this built up anger, all this built up rage. Because see, when we're talking about depression and anxiety for black men especially, it doesn't look like somebody laying in bed for 6 and 7 days on end. No, it manifests itself through anger and rage. I ended up getting suspended that day. And Ms. Williams and I were able to laugh at the situation years later because I was able to cope with it and understand what I was feeling. But again, it was a moment in time that impacted my life. My third and final story happened at Bloomsburg University in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Again, we remember traumatic situations, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I call it the Jew story, right? Because when I go fill out job applications and it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? As long as it doesn't say misdemeanor or felony, I can ignore it if it says that. But if it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime, I have to check it off. And then I put, well, it all started with a cup of juice. And then the employers, they laugh like, oh man. And I laugh like, ha, ha, ha. That's my life. So the juice story is, I was coming from the gym to go get me something to eat. I got my food. I paid for it, emphasis on pay. And you know how you go to McDonald's, they give you a cup and you can go to the fountain and get whatever drink you want. And I did that, and I tasted it to see if it was watered down. But see, when you go to a predominantly white institution like Bloomsburg University, it seems like they have all the minorities' names on a list. And the school police officer said, "Phil, that's stealing." Mind blown. And me having this anger, this frustration that's built up over years of trauma, and me not being able to express myself in a healthy way, I blacked on her just like I did Miss Williams. Unbeknownst to me, that would lead to 20+ charges. I ended up going to jail that night. I ended up getting expelled from school. I ended up doing a weekend in jail because, listen, they say you'll get judged by a jury of your peers. With the average age in that community being 60 and over, it wasn't going to be a jury of my peers. But I needed that experience. I needed it. And I needed it because it told me that, Phil, I have to do something different. I ended up appealing to get back into Bloomsburg University, and people knew me, so people wanted me back. And so I got back, and I was focused. One day, my psychology professor, Dr. Cambone Camara, God bless the dead, he said, "Phil, come talk to me about anything, anytime." And I took him up on that. I went and talked to him, not to talk about school. I went to talk to him about a young lady I had been courting, right? And I wanted to understand, why didn't she want me? So I went to his office. I'm like, "Listen, I bought her sneakers. I took her to the movies. I took her to dinner." Well, my mom took her to dinner and all those things because I didn't have a job. Thanks, Mom. But he said to me, "Phil, in life, you change to get something or to keep something." And I'm like, "Man, what are you talking about?" Little did I know that would become my mantra, that I realized I had to change. I had to work on my wellness so I can be whole. It took approximately 10 years, because that's the average length of time that they say somebody who lives with mental wellness issues, that's the time that it takes for them to come to grips with it and to seek treatment. For Black people, I think it's much longer. And so within those 10 years, I've been on medication, which quelled the suicidal ideations. They're no more. I go to therapy every week. Hi, Dr. Val. It's been so critical for me in my wellness because I decided to go from living to thriving. To my Black brothers and sisters, you too deserve to go from living to thriving. We no longer have to wear the mask. We're survivors. There's help now. We can get help and walk out there with our heads held high and get the treatment that we need so we can go from living to thriving. To my non-Black brothers and sisters, will you now view the Black person that you come in contact with and might be in a negative way? And recognize that, you know what, they might have gone through something. Or to see them when they excel, what they had to go through to get to that point. Or will mental health continue to be viewed in America as Kate Spade, as Anthony Bourdain, as Chester Bennington, as Robin Williams? Would it now include actors Sam Sarpong, Lee Thompson Young? Will it now include 10-year-old Ashanti Davis, who took her life because of bullying? Would now represent Emmanuel Sloan, who's the reason why I'm here, because at 19 years of age, he decided to take his life by jumping in front of a train. This isn't an indictment on you or on America. This is just a public service announcement that's stating that we're here and we deserve to live and to thrive. Thank you.
African Americans face many disparities and barriers to seeking the treatment that they need. In the slide before, we saw African American voices speak out about the disparities and challenges they face in their own mental health issues and substance abuse issues. So the historical African American experience in America is characterized by trauma and violence and impacts the emotional and mental health of youth and adults. So youth that do not get the help that they need, they become adults with mental health and substance use issues. African Americans hold stigmas about mental health issues which affect their coping behavior. African American men are particularly concerned about stigma. African Americans hold stigma about the mental health profession because they have experienced barriers, they've experienced discrimination in different types of systems, and the mental health system is no different. African Americans are overrepresented in jails. African Americans with mental health conditions are more likely to be in jail or prison than any other race. African Americans are offered medication and therapy at lower rates than the general population. African Americans are often misdiagnosed with mental health disorders such as schizophrenia and less often diagnosed with mood disorder than their white counterparts with the same symptoms. So this is seen as when they do seek help or treatment, they're often seen as worse off than their white counterparts. Stigma and judgment prevent African Americans from seeking treatment for their mental health challenges. In 2018, 58% of young adults and 50% of adults did not receive treatment for mental health concerns, and that's in 2018. So when the pandemic of 2020 came, those numbers became much higher. 90% of African Americans over the age of 12 did not receive treatment for substance use disorders. So a few tips for seeking out treatment. Number one, remember that your voice matters. Your experiences are real, your emotions are valid, and your voice matters. Talking about your emotions and experiences can help give a name to it, and it helps take the power out of the experience. By talking about it and expressing your feelings and emotions, you reclaim your power. Number two, seek out professionals who are culturally competent. A culturally competent professional will seek to understand you and will listen to you. Educate yourself on the services and resources that are out there. And number four, reframe the experience. It's called post-traumatic growth, which is PTG. Find personal meaning and see how you can learn and grow from the experience.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And I'm going to go into a little bit about the organization as a whole. So University High School is a recovery high school in Austin, Texas, and we're a program of Austin Recovery Network. We strive to be able to have treatment for everyone because we think everyone deserves the access to treatment and the health and deserves health and wellness. So University High School specifically is a nonprofit. So we're a 501c3 organization. We opened our doors in August of 2014. We provide individualized, challenging academics in a safe and sober environment. Our program components are funded on national research and best practices, and we foster a culture of growth and wellness. So what are recovery high schools and kind of where do they fall on the continuum of care? So Ryan touched on substance use disorders and mental health issues in the African American community. And so where do they go to get help? And so on the continuum of care, the recovery high school is going to be on the later end with the recovery support side of things. So a continuum of care, what that looks like is a person would seek help, go to a residential treatment program, and then drop down to an IOP program, an intensive outpatient program, and then join our school. So we're a place to maintain sobriety. So kind of like, how does it work? So we really try to cultivate a safety net of support for all of our students and teens. And so we know they need treatment. So our main referral source is from the treatment center. They also need a sober peer program or a sober peer group. And that's because if they go back to their old friend group, they have a 90% chance of having a recurrence of use. So having that sober peer group is going to be really important. And engaging the family. We know engaging the family can be difficult, and we really are mindful of the dynamics of each family and kind of what they're going through. And we really try to tune into what their needs are, because we know that the disease of addiction is a family disease. And so we have to wrap around the entire family. And then us, the Sober High School. So we kind of tie all of these pieces together, or we try to. So our main goal is to really help our students learn to thrive. Like it said in the video, we don't want them to just live. We want every student to learn to thrive. And so doing that, having them learn what to do in treatment, having that sober peer group, and engaging the family will help the teen and the student get healthy and well. So kind of like what goes on, or what's the purpose of a recovery high school? So some of the characteristics. So our primary purpose is to educate students in recovery from substance use disorders or co-occurring disorders. The educational focus, it meets state requirements for awarding a secondary school diploma. The recovery focus, so intend that all students enrolled be in recovery and working a program of recovery for substance use or co-occurring disorders as determined by the student and the school. So we kind of skipped ahead on slides. So we know that a person's program of recovery is not going to look the same as like their friends. It's not going to look the same across cultures. It's going to be different. And so we want to tune into the needs of our students, and we create very individualized plans for each student. And we make it to where it works for them, because we don't want to give them something too challenging that they can't complete. So we really have the student work with us one-on-one and help us kind of guide what they need from us. Student eligibility. So our main requirement is just a willingness to try our program. It doesn't mean you have to have a willingness to dive in and do it, but you have to have a willingness to try. We know that this type of stuff can be scary and new for people. So we really just try to have that willingness for them to join UHS. We also have scholarships, and so we offer full scholarships. So we've never turned anyone away for financial reasons. All right, so at the high school, we really work off the adolescent recovery support model. So we integrate peer supports and continuing care to promote sustained recovery. So we include peer recovery role models and social activities. We build recovery capital for each of our students by working with the youth to develop emotion regulation and life skills. We provide a safe and sober environment with adult supervision. And we seek to build social recovery capital by facilitating fun and positive activities. And a person's recovery capital is what they have as resources to use to maintain their sobriety. So we help them build that and look for that and maintain that. So at the high school, we offer a structured environment for our youth. We know that people with substance use disorders and or mental health challenges need structure and routine. Within our environment at this school, they have the opportunity to connect with pro-recovery adults and peers who genuinely care. And so it's so helpful to be around people with similar goals. So at the high school, the goal is to thrive. And to do that, we have to get rid of the substances and treat the mental health disorders. We really want to encourage friendships with pro-recovery peers, which is a key factor to motivating engagement. We want to offer the opportunity to build relationships with peers who share similar histories and experiences. So we want to cultivate a diverse community where everyone feels comfortable and safe and has that chance to share and open up. We want to offer the opportunity to share a level of accountability and vulnerability not previously experienced. And we know this can look different for people, and we know it's hard, but we want to provide the space and the opportunity for students to hold themselves accountable and for them to get vulnerable if that's what they want. And that's something that we work towards. Because like it said in the video, sometimes that the emotions come out differently. And so we have to be mindful of that. And we work with each of our students to try to regulate those emotions and develop coping skills to regulate them. We also offer the opportunity to have fun while being sober. So we have our students come up with fun activities that we do on Fridays. We have fun throughout the day. We don't get sober to just sit around and be bored. So we really offer a lot of fun activities, and we get the students' input so that they have the buy-in, and we're doing stuff that the community wants to do. The school also offers unconditional support from peers and adult role models. So we are here to support the teen however they need. We're there to listen to them. We're there to be open and honest with them, and we're there to cultivate a relationship with them. We also offer the opportunity to disengage from unhealthy relationships, reduce shame, and increase personal self-worth. So we know that we can't always leave an unhealthy situation, especially if it's our family. And so we work with students to develop coping skills in ways that they can stay healthy in perhaps unhealthy situations. So academics at our high school. So we again strive for fun. This photo is when we made egg drop houses, and they dropped them out of a window. But more specifically, our academic partner is the University of Texas at charter school. It's a University of Texas school. It's flexible and open enrollment, so we enroll all throughout the year. We don't want to skip a beat if a student needs to get to us sooner rather than later. We want them in, and we want them to be safe and sober. We provide individual guidance from academic advisors. We have one-on-one support from state certified teachers. We have easy transfer of credits to and from the student's current school. We offer personalized curriculum plans. We know that everyone may not go to a four-year college. We know some want to start at a community college. So and some want to go straight into the workforce or trade schools. And so we really work with each student to meet their goals. And we develop that curriculum plan around that. We have online learning as well as direct instruction. And so we have a direct instruct English teacher and a direct instruction math teacher. And the rest of the courses are going to be online. We also know that sometimes working online can be hard. So we have tutors that come in regularly from the UT campus that help our students and guide them through the tutorials that way. We also offer dual credit and elective courses. We have credit recovery. We know sometimes when mental health and substances are involved, we're not maybe always attending school, or we might have to stop going to school to receive treatment or things like that. Or we might have been skipping school. And so we offer credit recovery so all of our students can have the opportunity to catch up to their cohort. And then finally, the student graduates with a high school diploma from the University of Texas. All right. So kind of like, what does our recovery programming look like? So we address multiple life domains. So we look at the home life, the school life, and the community life. So we try to make sure that a student feels safe and supported in all of these areas. And we really work with the family and community members that support the student. We have licensed and or certified, well-trained and experienced staff. We have daily peer-to-peer process groups. So we give the opportunity to process big emotions every morning. We know it can be really hard to go into academics without the opportunity to process maybe what happened that morning. Like it was shared in the video, he had to go inside after experiencing a pretty upsetting and traumatic experience. And so we want to offer all students the opportunity to process those big things that happen prior to going into academics so they are successful. And maybe they can't achieve something that day. Maybe all they can do is get themselves to school. And for us, that's great. We look for small progress, and we know it doesn't happen overnight. We have weekly meetings. We do 12-step recovery meetings weekly. We have weekly recovery, educational, and fun off-campus activities. We have service opportunities. We know being of service is a really great way to kind of get out of yourself, and it's a big part of working a program of recovery. So we have very individualized brief interventions as needed to provide social and emotional wellness and recovery support. We know that not every intervention is going to work for every person. And so we have different strategies that we can use for different students based off the needs. We have family system of support. So we want to support the family. And so we really try our best to educate the family, talk with the family, and help the family process all the traumatic experiences they've had. And we connect them with other parents so that they do have that circle of support that knows what they're going through. And we work really closely with the student support team. As I kind of talked about earlier, we want to work with the members in the community that are supporting the students. So we work with the recovery housing, probation officers, therapists, IOP, counselors, case managers, primary care physicians, psychiatrists, and MARS team. So we try to work with everyone we can and really advocate for this student. And I will just briefly go over our staff at the high school. So we have a CEO that's a licensed clinical social worker. We have myself, the program director. Ryan is one of our student engagement coordinators, and she is in the lab helping students process any big emotions. Maybe they have a craving, maybe they're kind of having a depressive episode. Ryan is consistently in the lab with those students, helping them process those things. We also have a principal and an assistant principal. We have a math teacher, an English teacher, a teaching assistant, a licensed specialist in school psychology. That becomes really helpful in testing for different kind of mental health issues. We can get accommodations and anything that student might need so that they can thrive in our educational environment. We have our academic transition coordinator and our registrar. They really work with our students to get them to meet their future goals. So whether it's going into that workforce or a trade school or community college or for four-year university, we really help to prepare each student for what they want to do for their life and help them thrive. And then lastly, Ryan and I wanted to offer you some resources to go home with. We have several here. We have different resources, like 7 tips, mental health tips for Black folks with Black therapists, African Americans, the NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Health, and Black and African American communities in mental health. And then under that is just resources in our community that where you can receive help. So, and we thank you all for joining us, and we are excited to answer some of your questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Ryan and Libbey. That was a wealth of information. It's a lot to unpack. You started with the data, then you showed the videos, and then the high school, which I did not know, and I'm here in the Austin area. So wonderful, wonderful information. So I hope individuals that are participating, I hope you were able to get it, but this is also a time that we're gonna give you space to ask those questions. And so we wanna welcome everybody back, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can in the time allowed. We have about 15 minutes to help answer questions. If you have not done so already, please again, put your questions in the Q&A function in Whova. If you are on Zoom and you are not able to access Whova at this time, please raise your virtual hand and then we can unmute you. So again, thank you so much to our presenters. We're gonna go ahead and get started because I think we have 3 questions already in the Q&A section of Whova. So the first is, how can we create more residential, therapeutic, and rehabilitation options for African American males to help decrease the chances of incarceration due to mental illness and substance abuse. And if you guys know of any resources, what resources are available to assist with this?
Hi, this is Ryan. First of all, thank you guys for attending my presentation. I'll be happy to kind of answer that question and touch on it. I wrote it down. I've been thinking about it. That question is kind of layered, and like I put the videos in there because African American males are least likely to seek help for anything, and that's because of the stigma. You know, in the African American community, we have this presentation that men are supposed to be strong, they're supposed to be able to handle it all, and so for that, it is I think you know, just looking at the history of incarceration and African American men, I think it's going to start with some awareness and education. You know, making those in the justice system and those in the mental health field and those in the social service system aware of how African Americans experience mental health, how they experience substance use disorders, and just advocating. You know, I think that's where a lot of the nonprofits come into play. I think that's where a lot of like the grassroots organizations come into play, and just advocating for, you know, if an African American male is arrested for like a substance use crime, they are more likely than their white counterparts to receive jail time than to have a treatment option. So I think bringing to the court to present a treatment option, you know, maybe because the thing is the treatment options, like instead of going to jail, you need to go to AA or NA, or you need to go to treatment. You know, that stuff came about in the court system through statistics and looking at how successful, I can't say the word, how successful the statistics were for people that went to treatment. So bringing that to the light and just bringing awareness, you know, that just bringing awareness to the topic. You know, I don't think it's going to happen, of course, overnight. It's just going to have to be something over time. It's just going to have to be us doing a little piece at a time, just like a pie. It's just going to have to be us taking a little slice of it at a time. Resources, that's a great question, and I would have to go and look up some resources for it. Yeah, so thank you for that question.
I think somebody else mentioned, is there some resources for youth? I know you guys talked about the high school. Are they specifically just for youth?
There's a lot of resources out there for youth that are experiencing mental health issues. You can go to Google and kind of type in the search bar, resources for youth experiencing mental health issues, or resources for youth experiencing substance abuse issues. But three of them that I found are, it's called SAMHSA, which is SAMHSA, and it stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And so you can go on their website and they have grants and programs for youth. You can find treatment on there specifically for youth. And you can like go in the search bar on their website and type in resources for youth, and it should come up. Also, another one is the National Institute for Mental Health, which their acronym is NIMH. So it's NIMH.nih.gov. And I can put it in the chat also. And then another one that's specific to the state of Texas is the Texas Health and Human Services. And that's hhs.texas.gov. And they have what's called a YES waiver program. And this program targets programs for youth. It'll give you a grant to like start a program for youth that are experiencing mental health and substance abuse, or to be able to send a youth you know that you want to help into a program.
Awesome, thank you so much. And yes, I work for HHSC, so we know all about the substance use programs there. So, and also very interested to hear about the high school. So I think there was a question about how do people get chosen to even get into high school?
I can let Libbey answer that question since she's the program director.
Yeah, so we don't really choose a new one. We get referrals. So we have we work closely with like treatment centers and schools and things like that. And so we get approached. And so for us, all we need is the willingness of the student. So we need the willingness for them to work the 12 steps. We need them to have a sponsor and to be in an alternative peer group. And the alternative peer group is the after school social component. And they also have meetings during high risk times. We also, at the high school, we have never turned anyone away for financial reasons. And so we have scholarships. And so we have students that pay nothing and we have students that pay full price. And so we really try to meet families where they're at. And if they don't have the resources, we're okay with that. We want to make sure that student gets help. And so really, they need to have a treatment experience prior. And if they haven't, we do ask that they go get assessed and they follow the recommendations of that assessment. And one place that we refer to a lot is Phoenix House. They do our assessments, and also Phoenix House, it has the same kind of mission as us. They've never turned anyone away. They have state funded beds and things like that. So great resource in the community. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I think there was how many students are currently enrolled?
We have 12, and then we have kind of 2 in the chute, I'd like to say. So we'll have 14 by Friday.
Awesome, thank you. And we have one more in the Q&A, and I see a hand up, so we'll get to you, Ms. Gwynn, right after this question. In the Q&A, it says, if African Americans are being left out of studies, how and why should we believe the statistical numbers that were presented in the video?
That is a great question. I wrote that one down too. So I guess I'll give a little bit of my opinion about statistics. Statistics are numbers, and we can make numbers say and represent whatever we want them to say and represent, you know. With that being said, the statistics are helpful because African Americans are beginning to be put in a lot of the studies and a lot of the data, and people are, there are organizations and studies out there that are targeting just looking at African American communities and this issue in that community. With that being said, I think that how can we believe the statistics or the numbers? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think that, you know, it's hard, you know, it's hard to look at that, you know, because a lot of the times, you know, you'll have a study that will target African American women and they leave out African American men, you know, or they will target like youth and they leave out the older generation. And so, you know, that's a hard question. It's a hard question. Something I would have to research.
No, thank you. No, thank you so much for your transparency, because you're absolutely right. I think statistics can be swayed either way. I will say that, like you mentioned, African Americans are being part of more statistical information and data. And so we're starting to look at data by race to see who is being omitted, and admitted. So who are the folks that are at the table, and then who are the folks that we don't see at the table that we need to see. And so I think that bottom line, the issue still remains that substance abuse is huge in the African American community. It's something that a lot of us don't talk about. We don't talk about Uncle Ray Ray, who we know has a drinking problem, but everybody just accepts it because guess what? It's Super Bowl Sunday, so we know he's gonna do, 12 beers, or it's this family gathering, and we know, Thanksgiving, so we know, and sure, he's gonna get drunk and he's gonna say some stuff and whatever, and sometimes we just accept it. So I think, the data still shows, even though it may be small and minute, that there is a problem in the community, and thank you guys so much for addressing it. And now, Ms. Gwynn, I am going to go to you because I see your hand.
Hi, ladies. Thank y'all so much for taking the time out to do this presentation. And I asked that African American question as well, so I knew it was going to stump you because the truth is that we ain't a whole lot changed, and you went through the history, um, and from there to now, it's not a lot of changes, and we're not being included in a lot of stuff. So, but one of the questions, another question that I want to ask is how many African American students are currently enrolled in the university school?
Sorry, I was on mute. So Gwen, great question. And that is something that we are trying to address. And so we currently don't have any right now. That's an issue that we are trying to look at and face. And one thing that we've really looked at is kind of our hiring practices, different things like that, because what we know is that if our staff can kind of match the community that we want to help, then we can diversify our population. And we're taking steps to get the word out there and spread the word, because we do want to help everyone, because we know the disease of addiction does not discriminate. And so we want to give everyone the opportunity to get into our school.
Yeah, so because to me it would seem that this is the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at ways to stop the stigma of mental health, stop the stigmatization of substance abuse, but we just talking about this stuff, but ain't nothing really being done, right? So we talk about a lot of stuff, but if it's not a program, or you came with the university, the school, but it's no, where can they go to school and get substance abuse treatment at if they can't even get into the one school that does it here in the community? And then this is a program that is supposed to teach us how to help each other. And I just, I just wonder, like, as a social worker myself and a graduate of UT, and and doing everything I could to get in, and I need to say too that my kid, this new generation ain't buying that, oh, we know Uncle Ray drink. Like, they understand what addiction is. They understand if you're a crackhead. They understand. I mean, like, this new generation is not standing by watching like we used to and not asking questions. So it's going to become a time where people are going to want to, like, why is it that we can't get in school there?
And I just want to address that too. Like I was saying, it's just going to take all of us working together to take a piece of that pie and put it together. And I do want to say this, the field of, sorry about the background noise, the field of substance use and looking at substance use, it's a new field, period. Like, up until now, people have not known a lot about substance use disorder for any race, and we're just now coming to the table to look at substance use disorders as a disease. Before the creation of Alcoholics Anonymous, people with substance use disorders, they were put in insane asylums, they were put in, mental hospitals, and they were forgotten about. They were deemed as hopeless, and they were deemed as crazy. Let's just face it, they were deemed as crazy, and nobody wanted to treat them. So it's just a new field, period. And so I think for not just only African Americans, but for any race, we are just now coming to light with substance use disorder and mental health disorders. And we're just now being able to classify this stuff as diseases. So it's going to take some time.
Ryan, we'll talk at a different time, because I do substance abuse as well. And substance abuse has been around a long time. I know a lot of people that's been clean 30, 40, 50 years, and AA been around a whole long time. So it's been known as a disease. It's been treatment. Austin Recovery was the treatment center that most people in this community got clean in. And so it's been around. I just think that it just keeps looking the same, and none of the changes are being made. But I don't want to tie up any more time with it. I just wanted to know if y'all had any students. What are y'all going to do to potentially get some African American students in there and make that change. And I'm sure, because I'm sure students that's at a high school that maybe have a substance abuse problem, but if there's not a school where they can go and continue to go to school, what's going to end up happening? They'll drop out of school, and then that'll be one kid that we'll lose, and then they'll start going in and out of jail. But all the white kids get to go to the university school where they can go to school and get treatment. And so, like, that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and we're working to break down the barriers because we're not getting them in, right? And so we do need to spread the word and the stigma and say we are here, and so we are trying to break down those barriers. And I do think it goes kind of back to the school to prison pipeline. We've really got to change policies around that and around the carceral system. Those two things I think are really important. And but yeah, we are working to break down barriers. So I think you're right, Gwen.
Thank you so much for your question.
Yes, thank you very much. And definitely, you got some individuals on the call who probably have some great ideas to help bridge that gap and to make sure that the students are also included in that as well. So I definitely encourage even people to reach out on the phone call. I know they've shared their contact information, and if you have ideas or other questions about not only the presentation, but also the university school itself, I think this is a great opportunity, and this is a great conference. So thank you guys for presenting, because this is a great way to share that information with the community who can help bring about change. All of the folks on the call, they're definitely interested in this topic. A lot of them have lived experience with this topic. So great people to collaborate with. So I don't see any more questions in this chat space. So I apologize. I have to use my phone to look at the chat and then look back here at the video. But one, thank you so much for everybody for attending, and thank you presenters so much for the wealth of information. I know there's obviously a lot of work to still be done on this particular topic, but thank you so much for your time and your attention and for sharing good information. And as we're ending the session, just want to make sure that we still do some housekeeping stuff. Make sure for those individuals who have signed on for their CE credits, make sure you are looking at that link and then clicking on that link and then putting in your information so you can get and download your certificate. Again, if there's any other questions, you can still bring them in the chat and then we can forward them to the presenters at a later time. So again, thank you so much for your time and attention. And I hope you guys continue to have a wonderful rest of the conference. We are nearing the home stretch, so have a great afternoon, everyone.